What's up, guys? It's Austin with the Bare Necessities, and we have some breaking news. Deshaun Watson officially requests a trade from the Houston Texans, and the Chicago Bears are expected to make a strong push to acquire Deshaun Watson. Now, while this might seem like a dream scenario to some, Deshaun Watson to the Chicago Bears might actually be a bit more realistic than we might think. Our GM, Ryan Pace, has a very good relationship with Nick Caserio, and there's a lot of ties from the Chicago Bears coaching staff to the Texans coaching staff that could make a deal a little bit easier. We'll talk about trade competition in a minute. First off, Ryan Pace has worked with Nick Caserio for a very long time, and he's been very fond of him as a GM and just as a person in general. David Culley, the new Texans head coach, also has a close relationship with Matt Nagy from his time in both Philadelphia and Kansas City with him. And then Lovie Smith, the defensive coordinator, is obviously known to be previous Chicago Bears head coach. While I want everyone to maintain their expectations low, Deshaun Watson to the Chicago Bears is a very real scenario that we could see play out. And while the compensation is going to be steep, likely something like 3 first-round picks and a franchise player, maybe Roquan Smith, maybe a Khalil Mack, it would be worth it to secure your franchise guy for the next 15 years. Deshaun Watson's only 25 years old. He's got a ton of gas left in the tank, and having him on this roster would automatically mean the biggest position of need for the Chicago Bears would be figured out for the next 15 years, and that is invaluable. And now I understand a lot of people are hesitant to trade 3 first-round picks, and even more so 3 first-round picks and potentially someone like a Roquan Smith or a Khalil Mack. It isn't as bad as many people would think for that price. We need to remember that the Chicago Bears with Deshaun Watson would probably be picking in the high 20s almost every single year. And beyond that, if the Bears wanted to trade up to get a quarterback in the draft this year, it would probably take something of at least 2 first-round picks, potentially even 3 first-round picks for a high-quality talent. So the Chicago Bears kind of have their hands tied behind their backs. They need to get a move, and best of all, this move would allow this team to win now with a defense that is very good. Obviously, if Khalil Mack gets traded, that would be a massive hit. I don't foresee him being the player that the Texans would want. I think Roquan Smith would be the first and foremost primary target of the Houston Texans in a trade because he's so much younger than Khalil Mack and still on that rookie deal. And again, if the Chicago Bears do get Deshaun Watson, this team is ready to go for a Super Bowl. It would also allow us to maintain Allen Robinson's contract. So for those of you who are huge Allen Robinson fans, the way that the trade would end up turning out, the Chicago Bears would only be taking a $10 million cap hit for this season for Deshaun Watson's contract, meaning they would also be able to extend Allen Robinson. So now we're talking about an offense that not only has Deshaun Watson, but maintains all of the offensive pieces from last season. And while the quarterback position certainly isn't the only position of need for the Chicago Bears team, having it fixed would have a massive compounding effect over the entire rest of the roster. This would also allow the Chicago Bears to actually have some space to work with in free agency as well if they made some strategic cap moves. While they may be missing that first-round pick, a second-round pick for offensive line and bringing in someone like Taylor Matan would certainly help improve this offensive line and have this offense ready to go. By the time the Chicago Bears would be making their next first-round pick, which would be somewhere in the realm of 2024, it would also be the time in which this defense is really hitting the end of a lot of the premier players' primes, and Deshaun Watson would still be 28 years old. Ryan Pace has also shown to be very good in the later rounds of the draft and pretty much good at drafting every single position besides the quarterback position. We need to remember that Ryan Pace has consistently brought on this team 2 to 3 starters every single year from the draft in late rounds. Last year, for example, even though we only had 2 second-round picks, we're missing a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round pick, Ryan Pace was still able to add Cole Kmet, Jalen Johnson, and Darnell Mooney. Beyond that, he also added supporting cast characters like Kindle Vildor. And if you look at Ryan Pace's past history, with the exception of Roquan Smith, most of his first-round picks have not turned out that well. And I'm not saying that's what this year is going to be. I think that he has kind of figured out his method for evaluating talent, and some of the guys he drafted early in his career were a lot to do with his lack of experience at the GM position. And so while it doesn't necessarily mean that Ryan Pace wouldn't draft good players in the first round, having a guy like Deshaun Watson is absolutely worth it for any price tag they're asking for. Again, when you also consider the other options the Chicago Bears have, it makes a lot of sense for Deshaun Watson to come here. And now the other question people are asking is, would Deshaun Watson want to play in Chicago? And while I can't answer that completely, as I think there are reasons for Deshaun Watson to not want to play for this team, what I can say is that he does want to play in a West Coast system that is executed in Kansas City. So Matt Nagy's a perfect fit there. Matt Nagy also has a close relationship with Deshaun. They're pictured a lot hugging each other and talking after the Houston Texans game. And they gained a friendly relationship through the draft process when Matt Nagy was a huge fan of him. Ultimately, guys, this would be a franchise-changing move, and whatever the cost is, it's worth it. I'm not going to come out and say the Chicago Bears are instantly going to win the Super Bowl if they land Deshaun Watson, but there is no doubt that they would have a ceiling that is extremely high for the foreseeable future. Ultimately, guys, it's really going to be interesting to see how this transpires and to see where Deshaun Watson ends up. One last thing I wanted to note from a location standpoint, the Chicago Bears make a lot of sense for the Houston Texans because they wouldn't have to trade him within conference. While a lot of people are bringing up teams like the Jets and Miami as potential contenders for Watson, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense from the Texans standpoint to send him within conference, considering if they send him to a team that has a lot of picks and a decent future, they're gonna have to play against him in meaningful football year after year. And that would be a complete narrative builder and could potentially lead to a lot of firings. Sending Deshaun Watson to the NFC will be of the highest priority for this Texans team. So the real competitors besides the Chicago Bears I foresee is the 49ers, who it kind of seems like they might actually be in play for Matthew Stafford. So I don't know if they would exactly want to, give out their entire team for Deshaun Watson. And then also the Panthers, who make a lot of sense as well. The Panthers, unfortunately, do have a good amount of draft capital, which is going to make it a little bit tougher for the Chicago Bears to swing this trade. That being said, the Chicago Bears also have a ton more talent that they could send this team in return for Deshaun Watson. And the rumor is that the Texans want at least 2 first-round picks and a franchise-type player. The Panthers, they don't really have that franchise-type player that they could send over to the Texans that would make sense. You can say Christian McCaffrey, but I don't think this Texans team will be all that interested in a running back. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you enjoyed this little segment of breaking news. Look out for some more videos to be coming out later this week, and bear down.